So, as expected, and as many of the opinion polls suggested, Labour were victorious in the general election. So what I'm going to do today is have a quick summary of what that can mean in terms of the law and the changes in a number of different areas. Start first with employment law. So in employment law, this is probably the area of law where Labour are going to make the most radical changes and the headline grabbing changes they put in their manifesto, the first one of which is to change the qualifying period for unfair dismissal rights, so that employees and workers from day one of their employment will have the right not to be unfairly dismissed. Currently someone has to work for 2 years to obtain this right, and so it's likely that this change in particular is going to lead to a huge increase in employment tribunal claims, and so both employees and employers need to be aware of that. Secondly, Labour are also proposing introducing a default right to flexible working, except where it's not reasonably feasible. So currently, employees have a day one right to request flexible working, not to be given it. So again, this is quite a substantial change with Labour proposing that from day one of your employment, you will have the right to undertake flexible working. Thirdly, another change that Labour are looking to make is that they're proposing that there will no longer be waiting days for statutory sick pay. So currently you have to be off work for the purposes of being sick for at least 4 days to obtain SSP. Labour are proposing that from day one of your sickness absence you'll be entitled to SSP. So again, this is quite a substantial change and is likely to affect a number of employees and employers. At the other end of the scale, Labour haven't said a lot about what changes they may make to inheritance tax, but notwithstanding that, there's a lot of speculation in the manifesto that Labour need to raise some much needed funds, and inheritance tax could be one area where they seek to try and obtain some more tax revenue for HMRC. In the past, Labour have talked about reducing the inheritance tax threshold and the point at which you pay inheritance tax. This is likely to mean that Labour will introduce a new policy meaning that more modest families will be required to pay inheritance tax. Secondly, there's also been quite a lot of speculation around Labour introducing amendments to, or reforms, to the capital gains tax regime. This again could mean that in addition to inheritance tax, capital gains tax is also payable when an estate passes on death. Finally, property sector again is another area in which Labour have been catching a lot of headlines. They're proposing a huge undertaking in terms of building much needed new houses. So they are promising in their manifesto to build an additional 1.5 million homes during their parliament. They're also proposing to introduce a new mortgage guarantee scheme which will support and help first-time buyers get on the property ladder. And finally, Labour are also proposing to deliver the biggest reform in a generation for building new, affordable and social housing. As with any government, nothing is certain, but you can be rest assured that at Attwells we'll keep a close eye on all developments and ensure that our clients are properly protected and made aware going forward.